decent, but it'll be kind of trial and error on my part. Is it good enough?
Everything's fine, Mark. I can hear you okay, and thank you so very much for joining me for an informal interview. It's last time we spoke was October of 2019.
Was it
So
really?
yes, so
Little did we know what was approaching.
I know, I know. Lo and behold, look, a lot has changed. I've grown older. I've got my bachelor's degree. I've moved to a new location. Obviously, a lot has changed, happened in the world
What's
since
your subject? Your bachelor's degree?
psychology.
Oh, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Um. So yeah, obviously, and I'm at a point now. I'm working out my postgraduate qualification, and so there's been a lot of achievement, and I wanted to sort of open we'll have an open question just to get your own opinion or view on what personal excellence might mean to you. So personal excellence, you know. So I talked a little bit about my achievements. Academically and person. Obviously I've grown old. I'm a bit older now, and maybe a wee bit more wiser. I don't know, but have you got any insight there about personal excellence?
Yes, I think it's a very good question, and a very important question. And I think if everybody on Earth really understood the answer to that question, we'd have a very, very different world and a very much better world. Um, so people think of personal excellence as being, well, what's the number one thing? Certainly, money is going to be high on the list. Um, Physical fitness, beauty, confidence, number of friends, good partner or family life, um, academic achievement, as you mentioned, and all these things can be excellent, certainly. But the problem is sometimes that they are over exaggerated and it becomes all about one of those things to the detriment of other things that really matter. Um, Now, let's take money, for example. We need money if we live in the world to survive. And there's nothing wrong with having a bit of money. It's a question of how that money is used. And if it is just, let's take an extreme example of someone who has tens of millions and it is frittered away on Lamborghinis and yachts and all this kind of nonsense. He may be regarded, or she may be regarded, as a very successful, excellent person by the standards of the world. But what they actually are is a wasteful fool. However clever they may be in terms of business, and well done to them if they've honestly acquired the money through some kind of useful endeavor, but they're nevertheless foolish in the way that they use that money, or rather misuse that money. They might say, well, I've worked hard for it, it's mine, I can do what I want with it. I deserve it. And maybe there's something to all of that. But the point really is that the wonderful thing about having tens of millions of dollars or pounds or whatever is the opportunity to do good. That's what you have. Of course, we need to look after ourselves, and I'm not suggesting some horrible kind of puritanical life where we never spend any money at all on having fun ourselves. I'm not suggesting that at all. But when it comes to these extreme amounts of money, what that gives the person is this wonderful opportunity to do good, which I think actually would even give them more pleasure. I mean, if you already have 2 Ferraris, how much additional pleasure are you really going to get from a third? Again, to take an extreme example, wouldn't you actually be happier using that money for good. And this is rather a long, roundabout way of answering the question, but the point really is that true personal excellence is what we do in selfless service to others. That is it's not the only form of personal excellence, but it's by far and away the most important. And all other forms of personal excellence don't really matter, except in the context of how they contribute to that selfless service. So, for example, academic achievement, if the result of that is just that you read dusty old tomes that don't really mean much and never did, and write a dictionary of some dead language that's really of no use to anyone now, you're misusing your talent, your expertise, when you could be applying your brain to something that might actually be useful. Maybe very impressive, whatever the academic achievement is. I certainly encountered this a lot myself. I studied Chinese at Cambridge, and there was a lot of studying of dusty old tomes. And I often wondered, well, is this really the best use of these highly intelligent people's time? No disrespect to them. There is maybe some use to these things, but is it really the best use of the time of someone who is highly intelligent when we live in a world that is full of massive problems?
So, Mark, if I understood you correctly, personal excellence is less to do with this materialistic sort of thing. It's more of a selfless, um, selfless endeavor to reach higher goals, but also because I wanted to sort of I've got a related question here, and if it's to do with our relationships with other people, yeah, um, is there anywhere for? I mean, obviously that also includes a very dusty old term uh, that I've come across from reading Confucius. You mentioned about learning Chinese.
Oh,
Filial piety. So, is there this idea, our behavior towards our parents, whether that's caring for them when they're older, and obeying them when we're younger, um, you know, because our parents are our first moral teachers, yeah, and they instill in us at a very young age this idea of they give us the morals, the do's and the don'ts, and they set goals. Yeah. Do you have um, anything you'd like to suggest, or from personal experience even? Because I remember in our previous interview you said that you came from the Church of England. You weren't particularly religious, and it was around you were a teenager. You became interested in UFOs and spirituality. Was that something that other people instilled in you, or did do you want to share a bit about that and relate it to personal excellence?
sure. Well, I think everyone has their own destiny. That may sound like a cliche, but I think it really is true. But where it becomes difficult is living up to that destiny. And I'd say also that everyone has a destiny to do good. That's my personal belief. It may be very unlikely that they're going to live up to that destiny, but I don't think anyone is, as it were, created in order to just be evil. I don't think that exists. And certainly there's the
Sorry,
potential.
you don't think what exists the
I,
evil is
I
inherent,
don't
or
I don't think that anyone is fated to be evil. That's their destiny to be evil. I think everyone has the potential to do good, and however improbable it may seem, given the person's situation, I think that all people have the destiny to do good in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everyone has a different destiny. This is a very important point. We're not all the same. There are many, many ways to do good. There are many ways to develop oneself in order to be able to do more good. And when I was growing up, I had very unusual interests um, that were not shared by the vast majority of people around me. And sometimes that can be a slightly lonely feeling. But when it's something really important, I think we should stick with that urge if we really are being guided by our souls, to carry on and to not just sort of wallow in the mediocrity that we may find around us. Rather, we can learn the good from what is around us, but also we can try and develop ourselves even more than that.
Well, Mark, can I just share a recent anecdote or incident that happened in a Church of England school, and it really baffled me. And this is going to sound very dystopian. The teacher asked the year 10 students, so I was observing a year 10 lesson, and the teacher asked a very deep question, and the question was, who here would be in favour of reintroducing the death penalty over here in England or the UK? And the majority of the hands went up. Now, there's a disturbing learning outcome there, and I'm still trying to work it out. And thankfully, I'm not at that school anymore, and it was a blessing in disguise for that school to, But it really disturbed me that children, these are kids.
How old were they?
Year 10. So
What's that?
they're still kids to me, year 10. Uh,
I didn't grow up with that system of years, so I don't know what that means.
so they're teenagers, yeah?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
can you...
Well, the death penalty. I don't think it. We were asked. I remember we were asked that at school when we were younger than that. We were about 10,
Wow.
and there was only, as I recall, there was only one person in the class who was in favour of it. Where I grew up in those days, that would have been in about 1990 in
Mark,
South
did you
East.
say Lowestoft?
Sorry,
Where did you grow up, sorry?
in South East England.
Oh, Southeast England, okay. Yeah.
South East. Um, so it was a minority view in my school at that time. As a teenager, I don't remember discussing the issue. It's something that I'm definitely against myself. And of course, one simple reason for that is, what if you make a mistake? That's just a pragmatic reason. And also, I don't think that a state should be killing people. There's another more metaphysically involved reason, which is that if you believe in reincarnation, as I do, and other planes of existence between lives, it doesn't solve the problem, because when someone is executed, they're not eradicated from Earth. They're just on a different plane of existence, and they're going to come back and be reborn. So I think, easy for me to say, I know it's not my field, but I think it's a very important field. I think the key is, however difficult it may seem, it is some kind of rehabilitation. I think that should be the goal of all. I think criminal punishment should be about deterrent, obviously, there has to be
Mm.
deterrent. And secondly, rehabilitation. That's my personal opinion. And we don't actually have, a specific doctrine on such a thing in my organisation. But there is a very clear line throughout our teachings of thou shalt not kill. And I certainly don't believe in the death penalty.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Very interesting response. Now, talking about reincarnation, this leads on to my next question, and I have come scripted. I've got a script, but that's okay, isn't it? Now, this question is actually about So in Tibet and throughout the world, the Dalai Lama is considered or seen to be the 26th reincarnation of Gautama the Buddha. Okay. Um,
Is that right?
well,
I thought it was no, but I talk about their beliefs.
their beliefs.
I'm no expert, but I thought that they believed that he was the reincarnation of some famous lama, but not actually Buddha.
Okay. Well, this is what I've gathered. So,
Okay, well, you may be right, but that's not what I've been told.
the question here is, some people find this expression disturbing. Okay, because you know if I know you're saying it's not that the information not might not be accurate, but the idea of reincarnation, um, that this man can is being reborn. Yeah.
They definitely think that he's the reincarnation of somebody important, as far as I understand it.
So tell me about the idea of reincarnation, because it's to me, if you don't get it right in this life, to put it in a layman sort of way, if you don't get it right in this time, you might not, you might possibly in the next life. Can you shed some
Yes,
clarity
well,
on
that's certainly true, and that's one way of looking at the whole purpose behind it.
that? Hmm.
Um, so I don't really want to single out any particular lama, but I know there are traditions that believe that an important religious figure is born again and again and again, and they find them in childhood and sort of get them set up for that position. We do not believe that would happen. That there are two questions. One is, are these people really going to be able to recognize such a person? Number one. And number two is, it's not really quite how reincarnation works, that somebody is born with the same job over and over and over again. Because the whole point of reincarnation is to learn and evolve. And the way you learn and evolve is through different experiences, different challenges. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you have a highly advanced spiritual person, then yes, from one life to the next, they will have a spiritual mission, mm-hmm. Which hopefully they will manage to complete. But it won't be the same mission each time. It won't even be in the same, necessarily anyway, even in the same religion each time, or the same part of the world, or the same race, or the same gender. This is not how it works. And the idea, really, of identifying a little child, or let's say misidentifying a little child, as being the reincarnation of such and such a great lama of the past, and then expecting this child to sort of live that destiny when it may not even be that person with that destiny. I think that's let's say, a very, very dangerous path to go down. I mean, you'd have to be absolutely 110% sure. And to be 110% sure of such a thing, you'd have to be an extremely advanced person. of which there are very, very few, if any, currently incarnate on Earth. So the whole thing, I think, is fraught with problems. And there was a case, actually, of such a child who was apparently identified as being the reincarnation of such and such a person. And he found it very difficult. And I believe he went in a rather different direction as time grew on. So to answer your question, though, basically about reincarnation, yes, it's certainly about improving. And if you get it wrong this time, then next time, to some extent at least, you will have the opportunity to make amends to some extent. But one of the great secrets of karma and reincarnation is the more good you do, the more opportunity you will have to do good in the future. That's what it's really all about. So if you have great opportunity to do good in this life and you completely waste it, then you will not have the same opportunity in the next life. But you will still have some opportunity to get onto the right path and to get back into that positive circle of doing good and therefore having more opportunity to do good. It's one of the most inspiring things about reincarnation is that no one is ever beyond redemption. It's just a question of when, not of if. Every sinner will one day be a great saint. There's no such thing as a purely evil intelligence. It's just a question of when that intelligence decides to do good. And on Earth, we have, of course, people who do a lot of bad. We know that. And we have a lot of people, the vast majority of people, who don't really do much good or much bad. And they're wasting opportunity because they have some opportunity to do good and they're not taking it. Most people do not take as much opportunity as they can to do good. I put myself in that category as well. I have more opportunity than I take to do good. But anyway, this isn't about trying to beat ourselves up or criticize people. Let's stick to the hopeful message. The more good we do, the more good we will be able to do. And however much bad we do, doing bad is bad because it causes suffering to other people or other life forms and to ourselves. So it's bad. It's a waste of time. There's another way of looking at it if we look at it very coldly. But even if we do bad, there will come a time when we will change, we will start to do good, and we will find enlightenment, albeit maybe in millions of lives.
Okay, Mark. So I'd like to move on now to learn a bit more about the leader and founder of the Aetherius Society, Dr. George King. I know you mentioned him in our previous interview eons ago. So this question, it might not be worded the best way, but it's the question is this who you follow, worship and learn from?
Follow and learn from, certainly. I wouldn't really say worship. Revere, I would say. We certainly revere him, but we don't worship him. We worship God. And in the highest sense of the word, there is only one God, the absolute, which is the essence of all things. We believe that George King was a highly advanced person who had contacted the God spark within himself, as it exists within all people, and that therefore he is someone to listen to, someone we can learn from in many spiritual ways.
And okay, thank you. And I'd like to know what Dr. King's business and employment was as well. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, he did many jobs in the early days. A lot of them were to do with cars. I believe he was a chauffeur. He drove taxis. I think he tested race cars. He was a very, very keen driver, very skilled driver. So a lot of the jobs had to do with driving, but he also worked as a salesman, as I recall. I mean, I think he also worked in a butcher's. So, I mean, pretty ordinary jobs. Well, some of the driving jobs were the, kind of higher end of the scale, certainly quite requiring a lot of skill. But he did a variety of fairly ordinary jobs in the main. And he used his spare time to practice the advanced forms of yoga. So that's not so much yoga as in physical fitness and relaxation, though I'm sure he would have done that too. It's the higher forms of yoga, such as Raja Yoga and true Kundalini Yoga, which is
Ah, right.
about.
So, yeah, I had a question here about that King Yoga because I thought to myself, wait a minute, yoga, is that not from Hinduism and Buddhism, and does it not involve people getting into meditative positions? So,
Yeah, so, well, what I just mentioned was Kundalini
mm-hmm.
Yoga. King Yoga is a word that we in the Aetherius Society, or a term that we in the Aetherius Society have created since Dr. King passed away to describe the way he taught yoga. So it's our invention to describe his path.
Okay.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it does. Now, there's on the website, Mark. I was just having a look on the Aetherius.org. Yep, the official website. And when I scrolled down, I seen a picture of Dr. King, and I just wanted to pick up on something that's one of the paragraphs. It says Dr. King believed, and says in the latter part of the paragraph that the greatest crime is to cause confusion by giving people the wrong teaching. Now, my question after reading that, and this is a neutral question. It's not me attacking you or trying to, the question is, maybe not word it the best way, but does this imply that the Aetherius Society are the only ones that are telling the truth?
No, that's a good question. I'm glad you've asked that. No, we do not believe that we are the one and only way to enlightenment, to God, to better karma, or anything like that. We believe that there are many different paths to God, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about everyone's destiny being different.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that what one person has to do is exactly the same as what another person has to do or should do according to their destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So we do believe, though, that our path is unique. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in it. I'd be in a different path if I thought that there was anything better for me at this time. And what is unique about the Aetherius Society is that we have teachings from great intelligences from other planets given in a completely undiluted form that's very easy to understand and that can be directly applied to our lives to change the world. And that's an extremely powerful combination of things that is truly unique as a path.